What's up, Facebook fam? This is Aaron Lujan with Counterculture. If you're watching the recorded broadcast, say forward to minute 2. This is Jason Jorgenson, guys. We're pre-podcast. Jason Jorgenson's an educator, and he's running for school board in District 11 here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And we're going to start the podcast in 2 minutes. If you guys have seen this before, you know the drill. I go live for a couple minutes, and then we start recording. This is primarily a podcast, so we will be starting the podcast here shortly. But yeah, thanks for joining, guys. If you just want to be patient here with us for a little bit, Jason's going to sing a ukulele while we prepare to get started, right, Jason?
I left it in the car, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
Never mind. No ukulele today.
Cancel that.
We'll cancel the ukulele, but we
Next
will discuss the modern state of education. So, like I said, guys, if you're watching the rebroadcast, forward to minute 2, and we're going to get started here. Let's see. Is this thing on? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good. Okay. So, audio's good on the podcast. I have my notes. You have your notes. You're all locked and loaded, ready to go?
Yep.
Okay.
Good to go.
All right, and how does this look? Does everybody look?
Looks all right.
All right, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, the contrast, the brown guy and the white guy. Racial unity. I'm just kidding. We joke around on Counterculture, guys. We're, if you take life seriously, this is probably not the place for you. You'd have to go to Jordan Peterson's podcast or something. One of the cool guys. All right, so it's 9:15. I say we get this party started.
There we go.
Okay. Welcome. Today is September 25th, 2019. You are listening to Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. Today is episode 38. Is modern education preparing children for adulthood? A conversation with Educator and school board candidate Jason Jorgenson. Welcome to the podcast, Jason.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. This is exciting. He's our third ever guest on the podcast, and he was gracious enough to oblige my request. We actually are friends. We go to church together, and my wife actually is one that follows the local education trends, and you know, my head's over in Washington in the swamp, so sometimes I miss what's going on in my backyard. And she told me, hey, your friend Jason's running for school board, and I think on that same day Jason approached me and said, hey, I need to talk to you, and was just really refreshed to see that someone like him is running for this type of office. So if you guys are in the Colorado Springs area and you have the opportunity to vote in District 11, Jason Jorgenson is running for school board. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess I should start with a little bit of my background. I've been a native of D11 for my whole life. I was born and raised in Village 7 and grew up in going to D11 schools, and so I went to Carver Elementary, and then I went to Saban Middle School, and graduated from Doherty High School in 2003. And then I lived at home and pursued undergraduate in biology and chemistry at UCCS, so just a few minutes down the road. And then went and kind of was a ski bum and a bike bum for a little bit until I met my wife, who at the time was pursuing a nursing degree, and she just said, aren't you supposed to be a teacher? Isn't that what God called you to do? And I said, yeah, it is. And so she kind of urged me to go, well, you should probably get on track with that. And I said, all right. And so I...
Wives are good at that.
Wives are good at that.
That's why we need to get married. If you guys aren't married, find a wife.
So I said, all right, darling, I'll go ahead and look at what to do to get going on teaching stuff. And so I entered teaching through the alternative licensure program, an ALP, which is kind of like a sink or swim type course where you start teaching while you're learning how to teach.
Oh.
And it worked out well for me because I just wanted to teach science and get in front of children and help them see how cool the world is and how connected it is. So I taught 6th and 7th grade science down in the Harrison School District 2 for 10 years. And like I said, I just left the classroom in May. Reason being for that was on the side I've been working on some Dave Ramsey and financial planning stuff, and my wife and I have taught Financial Peace University at our church for a few times, and so I kind of had this dream to help people with their money, because I had been seeing that as a growing problem for people, and I cringe every time I hear, "Oh, I'm just going to work till I die." so I said, "Well, I'm going to make a change about that."
Yeah, you're not a limit.
Yeah, so I started working on that kind of side hustle career, and with the birth of our second child, our daughter, in March.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I had some time to think about when would be the proper time to exit the classroom, and it ended up being this past May, after 10 years, and so.
So you left teaching entirely?
Entirely.
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
And not because I didn't like teaching, but because I felt the urge to move to the next thing
Right.
for myself and my career of helping people with their finances and retirement planning. So
That's awesome.
and it also gave me the freedom to be at home with my kids more. So
Which is great, yeah.
yeah. So I got a 2.5-year-old son, McKinley Courage, and then our daughter, 6-month-old Hensley Honor. And so
Courage and honor, you guys. This is a powerful family. You guys watch out in 20 years.
so I get to be at home with them, and I get to work on finances for people, and life is good right now. And
Yeah.
I was presented the opportunity to say, what do you think about building your sphere of influence from what you had in your classroom to maybe into an entire district by running for school board? And I hadn't really thought about it, but I just thought, I always loved how positive I could influence the kids in my classroom, and wondering how to make that reach greater. And when I was presented with this about a month ago, I just thought, well, that would be one way for me to, instead of just sitting at home complaining,
Getting in arguments on Facebook.
or that, actually doing something. And so I tossed my hat in the ring, and we got the petition signed to be on the ballot, and so I'm on the ballot for this November 5th election.
November 5th.
A few short weeks away.
Okay.
And so that's how I got here. But what I'm running on is pretty simple. Parent choice. If you have a kid in your district and you don't know what's going on with them in that classroom, you need to be asking questions.
Yeah.
And not because the teachers are doing anything wrong, but just so that you are aware of what your kids are learning. If you're not asking your kid every day, what'd you learn in school today, or hey, what'd you learn this week, then you're doing a disservice to your student and to that community for not being involved.
Yeah.
And so a huge piece of what I'm running on is parent involvement, parental choice in controversial topics that are kind of coming from our state legislation at the moment, which we'll get into more, I'm sure, on some questions. But
we will.
Just parent involvement, community involvement, and with that, keeping control local. I mean, in Colorado, state statute says that districts have local control over policy and curriculum, and that's kind of being challenged with some things coming down from the state.
So that's in the books.
Yeah.
And it's being challenged.
Yes, with certain legislation coming down on controversial topics that we'll get into.
Okay.
So I'm here to make sure that we're keeping everything local control, and that school board is doing what's best for its community, not what's best for our state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this is what I wanted to do next. So we know who Jason is. I wanted to break up the conversation into two pieces. The first part is kind of have a conversation about just education in general, compulsory school. What were its goals? Is modern education hitting those objectives? Is it accomplishing what it was set out to do? And then talk about some of those controversial issues and why you're running for school board, and then end with that. So I was doing research in preparation for this, and I'm a product of the school system. I actually went to Catholic school, which is very much modeled after the public school, other than the fact that there's a Catholic component to it, but it's compulsory because we live in America, and the laws on the books is that you have to go to school as a kid, and that it's something that is sort of common, the zeitgeist, right? The idea that you need to go to school in order to be successful,
Right.
and you need to get good grades and get a good education. And so I'm just going to ask a really simple question. What is the purpose of the educational system? What was it on paper set out to do?
Sure. I think if you look at like our grandparents, they only had an 8th grade education. and then they were done because they were either going into manufacturing or going to work on the farm. And a lot has changed since our grandparents were in education and going to school. Everything's digital now, and technology has made our lives a lot easier, to the point where I think there should be some questions brought up about, is Algebra 3 really necessary?
Yeah.
Is calculus, and trigonometry really necessary when we're not preparing kids for simple things like, do you know how to change a flat tire if you had a flat tire on the side of the road? Or,
Yes.
do you know how to live below your means based on how much money you're making? And,
Yes.
just things like that
Yeah.
that I see lacking.
Sure.
A lot of things I saw when I taught middle school were those students being very unique, and I had a lot of fun teaching middle school, but you could see that they were puppeting a lot of what they saw in their home. And so just kind of losing this idea of, are we allowing students to think for themselves? And are we presenting them both sides of a topic?
Right.
If there's topics that are being brought up in education that are controversial with adults and things that we fight on Facebook over, are we just teaching one side of it in the classroom, and then just saying this is how it is, or are we opening it up for discussion, allowing research to happen? Are teachers taking their bias out of that conversation and out of that content, and allowing students to explore what they really think, independent of what their parents might even have been teaching them? So I think the purpose of education has changed and needs to change. We have technology that makes our lives so much easier. We don't need to be learning all the things that we need to learn when we're lacking skills like how to think critically and how to take care of our apartment or our house, or how to function well with others. We're losing that kind of interpersonal connection because all we do is go right to our phones, and this is how we interact with people now. And we're losing this kind of conversation piece, and how much technology is too much technology.
So are you saying that the school system is discouraging social development?
I don't think it's meaning to do that, but I think when we're pushing one-to-one devices, and we're pushing how much technology can we use in the classroom, and what kind of, they are kind of these side consequences of our students are already on digital devices at home, and now we're bringing them to school where we want them to learn how to converse and use full sentences and all of that, but we're putting them back into devices where that's discouraged, because we're saying, well, use your technology, and I just think we need to have a balance there, and that's just a piece to discuss.
Sure. So you think right now the unintended consequences is that they're being siloed socially as a result of all this digital tools.
And then when they step away from that and they step into a real career or job, or they go to a college where they need to be interacting with fellow classmates or professors,
it's
are they equipped?
Yeah, are they equipped? Historically speaking, in my research, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, like you said, our grandparents' generation, it was okay to have an 8th grade education and then move on, and now it's 6 classes a day, 5 days a week for 9 months out of the year for 12 years, and if you don't go, your parents are going to jail.
Going to court at least.
Or at least going to court, right?
Attendance court, but yeah.
Attendance court.
Yeah.
So this whole revolution started between 1905 and 1915, the turn of the 20th century, where a lot of this actually came down the pipes. And a lot of it was influenced by the Prussian system. A lot of German influence, especially the turn of the 20th century, really influenced modern American life. And if you actually look at the authors of this system, it was a political revolution. These people that had championed the idea of compulsory education as we know it today were actually people that were advancing or propagating a political ideology, one in which I don't think we would necessarily agree with. That doesn't meet the goals of education, if the goals of education is to produce good citizens, make good people, and make each person their personal best. Because those, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is what cited as to why we need a mandatory education system are those three things.
Right.
But if you look at the actual origins of this, it's quite different. And there's a book by Alexander Inglis, a 1918 book called Principles of Secondary Education, and he argues that there's 6 purposes, and I wanted to ask you if you agree, disagree, or could expand on any of these ideas if the premise of this book is true. Number 1, the purpose of education is the adjustive or adaptive function. Schools are to establish fixed habits of reaction to authority. This is, of course, precludes critical judgment completely. It also pretty much destroys the idea that useful or interesting material should be taught, because you can't test for reflexive obedience until you know whether you can make kids learn and do foolish and boring things. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I'd have to probably read his whole book.
Okay.
I mean, I think we see kids pretty creative in their toddler years and their preschool years, and then we slowly take away their creativity as we are trying to put them into more of a structured classroom setting. You know, the piece about discipline and structure in that piece, I think that goes hand in hand with the parents disciplining and taking care of their children, and being respectful towards their adults, like their teachers and school admin. But as far as, you know, what I would speak to on that is we are seeing a lack of flexibility and creativity in the classroom because we are mandated to get through the curriculum, to cover the topics, to you know, we can't slow down. We've got to teach these things, and we've got to make sure you understand it for the test or for the, and so yeah, we are.
So that's what I felt like. I mean, in college, I would just cram the night before, memorize all of the facts, go regurgitate it the next morning, then forget about it after lunch.
If it was a topic you didn't like, of course.
Is that my problem, or is that a symptom of the education system? It seems very broken to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that anytime we can engage students in learning that they would actually love, then there's no need to cram for a test.
Yeah.
There's no need to worry about, you know, even down to the point of flashcards maybe for secondary, you know, education. I mean, obviously our primary kids in elementary schools, they're going to need that repetitive flashcards and here's your multiplication facts and here's your letters, things like that. But after we've, you know, once we get to 6th grade and we've developed the frontal cortex and we have concrete cognitive thought and we're starting to be little people, you know, at that point then we need to shift into, how are we flexible in talking about things and researching things, in engaging our students in ways that they like to learn, so that it's not just a bore to study for the test to get the grade, but it's just something that they enjoy doing, because their teachers are creative, their teachers allow for flexibility.
It's more conducive to human nature.
Yeah, and then with that, hopefully there's that interpersonal piece of, hey, there's community in our classroom.
Sure.
It's not just everybody go to your device and learn today's PowerPoint lesson or learn today's, you know, online learning on the you know, digital classroom. So yeah.
Awesome. And the second argument that Alexander Inglis makes in his 1918 book, Principles of Secondary Education, is the integrating function. He argues that modern education has an integrating function. This might well be called the conformity function, because its intention is to make children as alike as possible. People who conform are predictable, and this is of great use to those who wish to harness and manipulate a large labor force. Do you think that there's, as an educator, one who's been in the classroom, there's maybe intended or perhaps unintended consequences in that the system produces conformity, that they're not celebrating differences, that they're pushing this uniformity among the children?
I think we've seen that pendulum swing both ways. I kind of already spoke to the piece of, we have these really fun, I mean, my toddler, 2.5 years old, very creative, loves to draw, chalk, crayons, things like that. You know, and we see that in a lot of our kids, and, you know, wild ideas and dinosaur robots and things like that. And then we put them into the education system and we go, that's all cool, but those don't exist, or and this is what we gotta learn, and
we're not cultivating the creativity.
Yeah, we're kind of squashing it and saying, well, that's not good and well, and you can do that, but we need to get through this content or this curriculum, or you need to learn your cursive, or you need to learn your multiplication facts. And so I think that we are teaching students how to, they kind of tie together as far as, you know, yes, conform, be obedient, get through your school day, you know, don't be disrespectful to your staff and principals and in that regard, but yeah, it's is something that we need to look at. And then now we're swinging back the other way on the pendulum of, you know, empowering students. A lot of districts and schools are using, you know, the whole empowerment movement, and we want to empower our kids to be who they want to be. And so we're kind of seeing that swing back. It'll be interesting to see where that goes in the coming decade.
It's two extremes.
Yeah, and then we've had one, and now we're going back to the other.
And what's the danger? Because I've heard that in, you know, I don't have kids in the school system, so we're homeschoolers, in case you didn't know that, or people.
Perfect.
And so one of the reasons we homeschool is this idea that in the public school system, Johnny can do no wrong. If you don't color inside the lines, that's okay. And I'm not going to tell you that you did a bad job today, because that's going to hurt your ego. And some people are arguing that the consequences of that is that there's no structure, there's no accountability, there's no standard. Right. That we're like this amoeba of just this glob of,
letting things happen.
There's nothing. Do you think that that trend is increasing in the school system, and did you see that personally?
There's a fine line to walk on that too. In my experiences, I saw where we did have some students that no matter what they did, they would influence and affect the classroom negatively every day they were in school. And as a teacher, I don't know what was happening at the admin level, but we had students that we were not able to send home.
Yeah.
And we've got students that we don't want to send home because they have an even more dangerous situation if we were to send them home. So we have to think about that. We'll just suspend them. Well, maybe suspending them is actually worse for them than keeping them at school. So there's those discussions to have as well. But the idea of, well, everybody just gets everybody gets a participation trophy, and you move on to the next grade. I mean, I saw probably one or two kids every year in 6th and 7th grade with straight Fs would just move on to the next grade, and their parents, they would know, they'd be apathetic about it, and how do we reach those children that are at risk, that we're just moving through the system, and then they bop out at the end of high school, maybe graduating, maybe barely graduating or not. How have we prepared them? What disservice have we done to them for just moving them along and passing the buck?
Is that percentage of children large enough?
That percentage I just described, very small. Again, probably 1 to 2 in a whole grade level from just one middle school that I taught in.
Okay.
But I don't know what that would look like district level. Graduation rates and career college readiness rates.
Do we have a crisis in this country? Is there a national epidemic with regards to education? Do we have 18-year-olds graduating who are just flat out not prepared right now? Or is that hyperbole and I'm exaggerating the situation?
I think you're exaggerating a little bit.
Okay.
I think we're doing
I tend to do that, guys. I'm a little on the extreme side.
Our teachers are doing the best they can with the resources they have.
Yes.
Do we have some compliant teachers across our country? Absolutely.
I think teachers are... Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. To speak to the piece, we are bringing students to their high school graduation, and they're educated enough to know how to have some thought. Are they swayed by a lot of...
It's kind of scary though, Jason. Have some thought. They're 18, graduating high school.
Maybe I shouldn't have
they can tie their shoes.
We've educated these young people. Some of them have thoughts to pursue college or a vocational trade or a trade school or go right into the career field or to be entrepreneurs, and that's good. But are we giving them enough life skills, particularly when they are about to exit the education system in their high school years? Are we, like I kind of referenced earlier, do they know how to change a tire? Do they know how to manage their money that they're making from their part-time high school job? Sure. Or are they going to know how to manage their money when they go and get their full-time career after college? Or how are they going to budget through college so they aren't burdened with a bunch of student loan debt coming out of their college education? So things like that we need to look at.
Okay. And then the next point that I wanted to ask you about, and how are we doing, man? Is am I softballing you right now?
No, you're good. You're
going hard, right?
Questions, yeah.
Okay, the diagnostic and directive function. School is meant to determine each student's proper social role. This is done by logging evidence mathematically and anecdotally on cumulative records, as in your permanent record. Yes, you do have one. Do you think, in your experience, that the education system is sort of assigning social roles? You're the bad kid, you're the really smart kid, you're the obedient kid. Do you think that intended or unintended, we're defining children based on, as a result of the education system, where they stand in society.
I see that as a small piece, but I think you're missing the bigger piece of what that means. I think that what that means is we're looking at kids and going, hey, you know how to work with your hands, or you're a visual type learner, or you're a detail-oriented learner. And I think that's, to speak to that point is, yes, we are gonna, every student or every teacher might have that, well, this is my bad kid, this is my, they shouldn't ever outwardly tell their students that. We want to encourage all of our students to grow, but I think an education's job is to say, hey, you're really detail-oriented, I think you would like learning this way. Or, Johnny, you're a visual learner, let me go ahead and grab some other illustrations or some pictures or some short video clips to help you in learning this content that you're struggling with.
But you can't do that with 30 kids in a classroom.
It is difficult.
So
yeah, it's very difficult.
Do we need to have a revolution in our system and throw away the model that we have?
You could say yes, but is it going to happen?
Is it worthwhile? Is it worth the fight?
Is it worth it? Yeah,
I think the kids are worth it, man.
The kids are
no, but
worth
I'm being
it.
serious. Yeah.
I agree. I think there has to be other pieces that we talk about.
Sure.
Are we kind of passing everything to the education system and saying, raise our children? Or are we actually still saying as parents, hey, I know that I can put my son and daughter in any school, and that because I'm going to be involved in that school and in their learning at home and helping them look at what they've been learning and work towards their goals, that they're going to excel no matter where they go. But if we have parents that are passing the buck to the education system, where kind of the things that we're seeing coming down from state legislation is, we'll take care of your child, we'll raise them, we'll counsel them, we'll teach them everything they need to know that you don't want to talk to them about, that gets dangerous.
Sure.
And that's what we're kind of seeing is, hey, you parents are busy, you're getting home decompressing from your troubled job or your hard job, and you got to pay the bills and you got to keep working at night, or you want to veg on your phone. We'll just educate your kids, and that's the issue there.
I agree. Okay.
That needs to be also addressed with your question of changing schools.
The system. Yeah. Okay. So you think that yes, you could see some reform in the system, but also just as important is that parental component in what you just brought up.
Well, how much do you want to change every system?
Yeah.
What if you had there's a lot of districts that are going to 4-day school weeks. What if you then said, well, let's change our actual American culture to 4-day work weeks? Back in the Great Depression in the 30s and 40s, we didn't work that much. We didn't work 9 to 5. It was after the Great Depression that we had this whole idealized piece of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, go get some work done. That's how you're a good American. And
that world doesn't exist anymore.
What if we went, not with technology?
No.
What if we went back to 4-day work weeks, 4-day school weeks? I'm just thinking,
Sure.
This is brainstorming stuff. It's
sure.
How much do you want to buck the system? How much do you want to actually talk about bringing change and going, man, 4-day work week and school week, 3 days with our children, our families, our friends, our communities?
Would you be one on the school?
How that would change a lot of things.
Would you be one on the school board that would be willing to ask those hard questions and be willing to question the fundamentals of the system?
It depends on what we're seeing. If our schools are doing well and they're performing and we're seeing growth and our kids are safe and they're learning and they're growing, it might not be as pressing of a matter.
Is it?
I don't think it is right now.
You don't think it is?
No.
Okay. The selective function is something that Inglis argues. This refers not to human choice at all, but Darwin's theory of natural selection as applies to what he called the favored races. In short, this idea is to help things along by consciously attempting to improve the breeding stock. Schools are meant to tag the unfit with poor grades, remedial replacement, and other punishments clearly enough that their peers will accept them as inferior and effectively bar them from the reproductive sweepstakes. Again, this is Inglis's writing, kind of interesting way of expressing it, but 1918 was a good year.
Pretty direct.
Yes. That he would not be on MSNBC today if he was alive. That's what all those little humiliations from first grade onward were intended to do, wash the dirt down the drain. Is that true?
I don't think so. Oops, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Laptop went to sleep.
Wake up.
Wake up, laptop. That's a pretty loaded question. That.
Yeah. Let me phrase it the way that I would have asked it, because I think there's some truth to this, that I was a disruptor in grade school. I could not sit still. I would always want to talk to my neighbors, and I would always get letters sent home to my parents saying, Aaron was disruptive again. He needs to stop bothering the kids. And my parents were frustrated with me. Why can't you just sit still and listen? Well, I was bored.
Right.
I had already figured it out apparently, and some of the kids hadn't. And so rather than me sitting there waiting, I was 7, 8 years old. I had too much energy that I needed to talk to my neighbors.
Right. I think they call that ADD now.
They call that ADD, and I would have been on drugs. Yes. So I was growing up with the notion that I'm kind of a rebellious kid, that there was an edge to me, that I had this coat I had to wear that basically told all of my friends and the people around me, he's kind of like the bad kid. So that was true in my life. Do you think that the modern system is creating too much of that, either intended or unintended?
I think it's unintended because kids will be kids. And even though teachers do their best to keep an orderly classroom and to make the environment as best they can for learning, you are going to have those times in the hallways, at the cafeteria, in gym class where you're not picked first, things like that, where students do begin to kind of see their... I unplugged that.
Okay.
I thought the light was good enough.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're fine, yeah.
I think you see that, students kind of do see how they fit in a social setting. And you can change those. You can be content with where you are. I think it's just that we need to educate people. I mean, if you are middle of the pack, but you are happy where you're learning and you've got your group of friends, then be content with that. Be grateful for the friends that you have and for where you are in life. And I think we need to teach. We do a really good job of teaching kids material, but maybe not in teaching them just to be happy with who they are and with who they are. And I've learned that as an adult just in these past 3 years of going, this is where I am. I'm happy with this, and I'm growing individually, and I'm working on my own personal goals, and I'm content. I don't need to have that next new thing or that next bigger TV. And I think if we can kind of filter that into what that would look like for students, I think we're going to have a lot more peaceful student populations where they're just happy-go-lucky. Oh, you're the way you are, I'm the way I am. Cool. You want to go grab lunch, or you want to work on this project together? But we're not really encouraging that kind of gratefulness and mindfulness. So
your critique of the system is that it's not encouraging the gratitude and that mindset.
Yeah, and we had at the school I left in May, we had just started working on that, empowering mindfulness, gratitude, thankfulness, and that really did kind of help students who maybe didn't come from a lot to see where they could be thankful and where they could be grateful for. Hey, I'm getting an education. I have friends here. I'm able to be on this basketball team, or our school gives us sports for free. We don't have to pay $100 for uniforms and coaching fees and things like that. It's just kind of teaching those, again, life skills of, hey, are you content? Did you wake up breathing, and could you stand out of your bed this morning with your 2 feet? Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you in the greatest country in the world? Yes.
That's awesome.
Do you have the best education possible for you to pursue? Yes.
Yeah.
And just kind of that, wow.
I woke up and
it's
won the
going to be a
lottery.
good day.
Yeah. I'm living the lottery right now.
And I think a lot of times our phones are telling us doom and gloom all the time.
Sure.
Well, you should worry about this. You should worry about that. You should worry about this. You're not going to have Social Security. You're not going to have blah, blah, blah. Your education's going to be so expensive because college tuition, or, we're going to have global warming and flooding, and, you're not even going to make it till 40. And why are we doing that to our kids right now?
Yeah.
It's like, let's keep it simple. You're in the greatest country. You can, even though we all start at different places on a starting line, you can still finish your race well. You do whatever you want to do. You could be whatever you want to be. I mean, even my wife came from, an abusive birth home trailer park to adopted to a college degree paid for with scholarships to owning her own medical practice.
Wow.
I mean, America. It really is that. Yeah. And so when we're looking at students and go, well, I can't get ahead. It's just like, yes, you can. Who's telling you you can't?
You have the wrong mindset.
Yeah. And so I think going back to that piece of maybe not telling kids where they are socially, or going, well, you're just your trailer, your middle class, your upper class, your this color or that color, but just going, hey, we're all in America. We won the lottery this morning. We have an education. We have the ability to do whatever we want to do when we grow up. If we set the right goals and keep the right mindset, how can we teach kids to keep that mindset and that growth moving forward?
Absolutely. Thank you. That was awesome. Let's get into the controversial stuff, the stuff that I like the most.
I'll see how I do.
Okay. So one of the reasons why I was alerted to your campaign and why I think you have a lot of support here locally is what they're seeing coming down from Denver here in Colorado and a lot of states. If you're listening to this in California, or I know a lot of you guys are out, not even in Colorado, but especially if you're in California, you're hearing a lot of new curriculum, new initiatives from the state level down to the local level that a lot of people disagree with. One of them is vaccines. I think it was 13, what was
House Bill 1913-12.
House Bill 1913-12 in Colorado was a vaccine-related bill. I'm going to let you describe it, and how does that tie into your candidacy for school board in District 11?
Sure. I think we saw a lot of mama bears wake up and go out.
It was a mama bear moment for sure.
It really was, including my wife and our friendship.
And my wife is, if you're watching, she's generally politically apathetic, and she got hot on this issue.
My wife as well, very just like, So, so we saw that defeated.
What was it?
So basically, it was a bill that would ask schools to create not schools, but the state to create a separate registration system that documents whether students were vaccinated or not. And so we're creating a new database. We're tracking another way of tracking these kids, these unvaccinated kids, and then as a way to push, kind of more vaccines and more mandated vaccines onto our children. And so whether you agree with vaccinations or don't, whether your kid is fully vaccinated or not, I think any time that we are trying to take a stand for liberty and medical freedom, we can't mandate a liability-free product like vaccines. So
you cannot I think that's worth repeating.
Yeah.
You cannot mandate say that again?
You can't mandate a liability-free product.
Can't mandate a liability-free
Like
product.
vaccines.
That's an important point, because a lot of people that believe that vaccines are good and healthy and well are saying you're endangering my vaccinated kid at school, but your point kind of rebukes that, because they don't have the right to force us to mandate something.
Right, especially when there's anytime the government wants to mandate something on the people that has no liability or accountability, that should raise some serious red flags.
Yeah.
No health care or no kind of sickness care should be a one-size-fits-all approach. And so while some vaccines are effective, some aren't. Many kids are injured in different ways by things that are contained in these vaccines. We shouldn't be mandating something that has no reproach to it.
There's a distinction I think we should make in this point in the conversation. This is not us saying vaccines are bad or us saying vaccines are good. This is, I think, what Jason's saying, and I agree with, is that there should be medical freedom and there should be personal choice.
Yeah.
And that choice should be in the realm of the parents.
Right, yeah. Any such mandates that infringe on our personal liberties and a person's right to choose what's best for their family is unconstitutional.
So you're for the right to choose?
I'm for the right to choose.
I'm joking, but
in healthcare choices like that.
Yeah. Don't tell me that you have to put a needle into my daughter's arm.
Right.
That's my decision, not the decision of the government.
Well, I think you're seeing, with California passing their most recent vaccine bills and taking away medical exemptions and taking away religious exemptions, and I don't even want to think about how this is going to play out in the future with children being injured or dying from vaccines because they don't have their exemptions anymore. Children have been injured in the past, and the way these bills are written are really concerning.
And you're concerned because there's been instances where children have been damaged by the vaccines, and the bills are written in a way where they would be put back into a dangerous, harmful situation where they'd have to get it again.
Yeah, so let's say your daughter was injured from a vaccine the first time, and you said, okay, I need a medical exemption. The doctor wrote one, yep, adverse reaction to this vaccine. She's exempt from future vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking that away, and I might need some help from this on the vaccine community. But one of the things I saw was, that your daughter would have to be injured 8 more times on that vaccine to finally earn an exemption.
No.
So, right, no, I'm not going to put my child through 8 more vaccines and injuries to try to earn an exemption.
You're asking...
And that's what they're asking these parents to do in California who do not want to vaccinate their children.
In other words, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that the state of California is asking their parents to perhaps participate...
Give up their parental rights on medical freedom.
And kill their kid. I mean, let's not mince words. I mean, they're risking killing their kid.
Yeah, I think you are going to see some deaths.
Okay. So what's happening? So this bill was defeated in Colorado. Has a similar bill passed in states like California or other places?
I think the one that you just saw passed in California is more aggressive than 1312 was.
Okay.
And I think given our state governance system and trajectory of who's moving into Colorado, I think you're going to see those things kind of starting to trickle in here.
Like SNL, the Californians. Sorry, I got to throw in some humor in.
Sorry, that's kind of a doom and gloom topic.
Yes, yeah.
The point is we should not be mandating anything that takes away parental choice.
Amen.
And that infringes on our liberties and freedom of choice.
Well said. There's the homosexual agenda. My wife's friend used to be a teacher in the public school system, and she explained that there was an initiative from Sacramento called Rainbow Curriculum. And Rainbow Curriculum, if you're not familiar, was a mandated curriculum from the state of California telling children as young, I think, as 1st and 2nd grade, that homosexuality is not only okay, but it's to be celebrated. And again, going back to the similar point we made about vaccines, we're not here to get into a conversation about whether homosexuality and that lifestyle, we're not there to debate it in any facet. The question that I'm asking you right now is, are we seeing things in Colorado and other places like in California with the Rainbow Curriculum? Is this coming down the pike? What is it? And what's your stance? And how should we be dealing with this?
Sure. What Colorado is dealing with is legislation that just passed, House Bill 1032, which is comprehensive sex education or comprehensive health education, however you want to say it. And that is a bill that does promote more of a all gender spectrum comprehensive sex education piece. It allows supplementary materials to be brought into the classroom for teachers to use without notifying parents. It teaches at certain grade levels topics that I don't think I would want my student to learn from a teacher or from in the midst of their peers. And so kind of going back to what I'm running on is that parental choice piece. If you want to teach your child about all the rainbow of gender and you want to celebrate different genders and relationship ways, by all means, that's your God-given right in this country. But should a education system be dictating and influencing when and where that's taught with or without parent notification? The answer is no. The answer is no. Parents should be in control of when they want to teach their child about LGBTQ, about rainbow genders, about how people are different sexually and how to treat them. And that's...
Why do legislators think that it's important that they force my children to be sexualized in the school system by their teachers in the midst of their peers? What's their argument?
Well, you look at... I've taught middle school for the past 10 years, and when I first started teaching, they were like typical middle schoolers. Mm-hmm. But with the different apps and smartphones in every hand and things like that, we're sexualizing our children younger and younger and younger every year. to the point where my wife and I were at the park on Sunday evening, and we heard middle schoolers talking about, don't take your girlfriend to the movies, take them to your house and watch Netflix and do inappropriate things. And I can't even say the word.
These are, how old are these children?
Middle school children.
So these are like 12, 13-year-olds?
Yeah. Talking about take your girlfriend back and Netflix and have time together.
Yeah.
And with profanity.
Nice.
And
you guys, this
is
in very conservative Colorado Springs.
Yeah, this is Central Colorado Springs. We're at a neighborhood park with my children.
What is West Hollywood? What is New York City experiencing right now, I guess, is my question.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
Okay, so yes.
I guess to get back to your piece there, because we are already allowing technology unregulated by certain parents. I mean, parents maybe not knowing what kind of apps and things their students are doing on their phones. We have seen, sexualized ideas all the way down to 6th graders. When I started teaching 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. No. And so does our curriculum need to change in a way to maybe prevent some poor outcomes like STDs and STIs and educating at the middle school level and changing our curriculum in that way of, hey, here's what, because we are so sexualized as young people now, yeah, that needs to happen. And I brought that fight to our district, at the middle school level when we teach, human body systems, reproductive systems. Like, here's how these systems work. Here's consequences of, that kind of piece. But making it comprehensive, yes. But taking things that are controversial, like LGBTQ, different gender spectrums, those things should be left to the parents to choose to teach their children. So
then what is appropriate and what do you support in terms of sexuality in the school system?
So I support the idea that we need to teach how these body systems work.
But from a biological standpoint?
Yeah, from a biological standpoint in science curriculum.
Within the context of science?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that does happen with our science standards at the middle school level. Each, in D11, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, each learn a little bit about that in the biological standpoint.
Okay.
One thing that D11 has said they're adding is that a terminology of consent and teaching what consent looks like, which I think is an important vocab word to know, that no means no, or what you are consenting to. But I think the piece that we are seeing to change is that teaching of abstinence only, and knowing that our generation of children are already beyond that. A lot of students, I mean, I knew of a handful of kids in middle school that were sexually active when I was teaching. And so abstinence only is the best way to not have unplanned pregnancies and not have STDs and STIs. However, is abstinence only education the only thing we can do right now? And I would say no. We need to adapt our teaching to what these kids are dealing with. And as much as that pains me to say as a conservative Christian to go, we have to meet our kids where they are. And we have to teach them, hey, abstinence only is the best way, the only 100% way to stop an unplanned pregnancy, to stop contracting STDs among your sexually active young people. However, if you are or have already sexualized or been doing things, here's what's happened. Here's things that you can contract. Here's, and educating our children
on the consequences.
I
love it. Interesting.
So age appropriate, biological appropriate, but promoting abstinence only, but also teaching kids where they are.
Love it. That's awesome. No, that's great. That's probably the most well put position on sexuality in the school system that I've heard thus far.
Thank you.
So we've talked about that. We're gonna wrap things up here because we're about at time. So I just wanted to kind of start closing with some of the things that you mentioned on your website and some of your campaign platforms. One of them being you mentioned that you're going to champion best practices in education. Want to touch on that generally speaking?
Yeah, sure. I think we need to look at, with Dr. Thomas coming on as superintendent, just celebrating his 1-year anniversary, the district is already changing in a really great way. I think we're seeing positive school culture come back into District 11. We're seeing teachers that aren't afraid to teach and to do good and to worry about who's watching and, kind of that almost like dictatorship that was with the last superintendent. And so we're already on a good trajectory with Dr. Thomas and with moving forward to positive school culture, which then trickles into teachers that are better positive outlook that then spills into their kids having a better positive outlook. So yeah, I think Dr. Thomas is doing a great job starting things out. But as far as championing best practices, we have schools that could always perform better. And so how do we look at what education practices are there? How are we maximizing the time that teachers have for professional development? Are they seeing it as effective, or are they just checking the box and getting through another professional development or professional learning community, PLC?
Sure.
How can we maximize those for teachers? How can we collaborate among teachers of certain grade levels or certain content? What educational instruction strategies can we offer that are more effective for use in teaching the kids when we have them in the classroom? Because we all know that we all know that most students now that are at risk don't have time to go home and do homework for an hour. They're probably babysitting their younger siblings while their parents go to their second or third job, or they're sleeping in their car that night with no place to do their homework at. So how can we maximize the time with them in the classroom? That's that best practices piece.
Excellent. You talk about trade jobs. What's your position on trade jobs?
Yeah, trade jobs, kind of aligning to career and technical education, or what we call CTE, is how are we preparing kids for something other than career, college, or military? If we don't want kids, I'll show you where this. Some kids don't want to go to college. Some kids don't want to join the military. Some kids don't want to jump into a career. How can we prepare them? Kind of talking back to your other article that you said, where are we identifying kids' skills and strengths? If you like to work with your hands, by all means, let's teach you how to maybe pursuing a career as a plumber or a welder or a mechanic. How can we promote those jobs? I think we saw for a while there in education, well, college or, go to college, that's your best choice. Or go to the military and they'll pay for your college.
You're only successful if you go to college.
Yeah, there's some other options there. And I think that what we're seeing is in the next decade, we're going to have a lot of baby boomers retiring out of these trade jobs of electricians, plumbers, carpenters, machinists, welders, mechanics. And as a country, we're going to be severely lacking in quality, skilled tradesmen that are going to need to meet these essential needs, like when a pipe breaks or when my car is making a weird noise. We are only promoting college and career, or college and military. We have this huge.
Well, dudes are getting glitter beards now, so they don't have time.
Oh, I see.
They don't have time to learn a trade, bro.
Well, I think that needs to be promoted more and addressed more, and giving kids the opportunity to explore if that would be something they'd like to do.
Absolutely.
Because let's be honest, 2 years of an apprenticeship, a lot less in education expenses to learn that trade, and they're out making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, while their other college counterparts are still taking on $100,000 in student loan debt.
Broken as bartenders,
right?
Because they can't get a job with a Chicano studies degree,
right? Or a degree that's not practical in the workforce.
Right. I think we have a lot of college kids graduating with degrees in communications, degrees in.
Or they just keep going to college because it's deferring their student loans, and I'm a professional student, and it's like, how are you preparing to serve your local community that you're gonna?
Yeah. Where do all these degrees going to get you eventually?
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of a premium employers place on a college degree anymore these days, especially in the age of AI and globalization, where a lot of these career type jobs are being shipped overseas.
That, and you've got certificates you can get online on your own time and go, hey, I have these certificates, I have this experience, I apprentice with this person.
Yeah.
And if you show that you can have a conversation and that you can carry, that you have interpersonal skills that you can, actually communicate with a potential employer.
Yeah.
That's going to go a lot more way than going, here's my list of degrees.
Sure. I'm in digital marketing, and I didn't need to go to college to learn that skill. Right. I learned through experience.
Yeah.
And I think you bring up a great point about the income potential with the trade jobs. Is we are going to have a major deficit, and those jobs are going to pay a premium. So this is not doom and gloom. The good news, the silver lining, is that
we need to tackle it now, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
That if you are a young person, you don't have to go to college. College isn't bad, but college is not the only path.
That's right.
And that you may have an opportunity to not be as much in debt and to make a good living learning a trade. And that those opportunities exist now, and then those opportunities will grow.
Are only going to grow.
Yep. Last piece that I want to close on that I think is nearest and dearest to your heart is financial literacy.
Sure.
Talk to me about is the modern education system educating children to be financially competent when they're adults? And if not, how do you suggest as a D11 board member you would influence that, and then just overall the state of financial literacy?
Sure. So I remember my econ teacher, my senior year of high school at Doherty, really cool guy.
Shout out to Doherty.
Shout out to Doherty. I remember one thing he said: when you get your graduation money, because everybody got their high school graduation money, he's like, take $500 of it, put it into an investment, and just let that ball roll. And don't even remember it. Don't even think about it. Just put it in an investment and just let it go. It's like when you get to retirement, that'll be, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I got thinking, yeah, I should do that. Did I do that? No. I said, whoa, I got $1,900. What can I go buy?
Yeah, so, exactly. You're 18.
Or whatever it was. Yeah, I'm 18, right?
Yeah.
And
go ski.
So when you look at, that education is there, but. And it sounds good, and even I remember that econ teacher saying that and going, man, that would be smart to do. Mm-hmm. But how do we walk with students along that and say, hey, if you want to know more about this, let's meet, or let's have a community class, or better yet, let's offer as a district a community class for parents and students who are of good age to go through this kind of financial literacy course. Because I think we see poor financial skills in parents, and then that's what's taught to students, and then we're trying to break the cycle, and it's hard to do that. Mm-hmm. And so financial literacy in high school is already there with an econ class, but we only see it for 2 weeks in a social studies curriculum at the middle school level.
Well, that's short.
And that's when students are starting to first start to be handling money in the middle school level, and they're getting money for their movies or to go to whatever. How can we catch them there to start laying some foundational framework of good financial practices to make them successful, so that, again, what I cringe at hearing is, I'll just work till I die. Mm-hmm. When in reality there is another way to think of things. It's living below our means, investing, paying ourselves first, and kind of creating goals and objectives on things that we want to do, so that we don't work until we're 85 or 75 or 65 even.
I did not learn the concept of passive income. I did not learn the concept of residual income, business ownership, any of these liberating concepts until after I graduated high school, and I did not learn it in college. Yeah. I learned it out of a book. Robert Kiyosaki, shout out to Rich Dad Poor Dad, changed my life.
Sure, yeah, I read that one.
And it's incredible because as adults, all it seems like we ever talk about and deal with.
Well, we're taught to be employees and just to work. And if you want to be an employee and you love your line of work, that's awesome. But how are you using the resources that come home to you?
Exactly.
That's what I do as a profession.
Yes.
But how can we catch adults, younger, high school, middle school, and start laying that foundation of pay yourself first, invest, live below your means, don't take on a $500 car payment to impress people around you that don't know you and that could care less, and take the car payment and invest it into your future retirement.
And be smart and actually have something to show for.
Yeah.
And not be stressed out at 38.
Yeah.
Like I am right now.
When you're trying to raise kids and trying to keep everything, all these plates spinning.
Yes.
Keep your life simple financially as well.
That's great advice. Mm-hmm. Well, Jason, thank you so much for your time. If you guys are in District 11 in Colorado Springs and you're voting, Jason Jorgenson is the best choice for school board. He's for parental choice, and he loves the kids. You can see it. So we have a great opportunity to put a great person into that position. So make sure you vote for Jason Jorgenson. Well, when is the election, and how can people vote?
Sure. So election is November 5th.
Okay.
This is coming about 6 weeks away.
Yes.
Ballots will be to your mailbox mid-October.
Okay.
And then if you'd like to know anything more about me, if you'd like to reach out to volunteer or donate, my website is electjasonjorgenson.org.
electjasonjorgenson.org.
Yep.
You guys, this was episode 38, is the modern education system preparing children for adulthood, a conversation with educator and school board candidate Jason Jorgenson. Everything is archived at aaronlujan.com. This podcast is available on all the major podcast players, Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, etc. Thank you very much for joining, guys. Take care, and we'll see you next time. I believe our next guest, we will be discussing big government, and he's an Instagram personality, and I'm working on getting him booked, so be on the lookout for that one. Take care, guys. Bye.